So Andrew Cooper decided that my remarks at yesterday's panel were not enough to get me banned from your wonderful country, so we thought we'd try again. I want to start off with a land acknowledgement, because I'm sure that's very popular in your country. Yeah. I stand here today on land that should have been occupied by a wonderful patriot by the name of Jack Posobiec, who addressed you yesterday. Now, Jack is a loving husband and father, and he would have come over, I'm sure, and told you about all of the excellent things that the Trump administration is doing for his country. Unfortunately, he's currently in Arizona today, as you know, attending the funeral of his friend Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was killed in front of his wife and children for the unforgivable crime of having conversations that his political opponents didn't like very much. And might I say that Charlie Kirk was a moderate compared to the people that will come after him, because Charlie Kirk has activated an entire generation and made them realize that there are political opponents out there who do not want to debate with them, who want them dead. And the main realization wasn't just the fact that Charlie Kirk was killed. It was that before he had even been pronounced dead, when we were all praying that he would pull through, absolute ghouls took to cable news across the world and to TikTok and social media and the like to celebrate his shootings. The press, politicians, pundits, Twitch streamers, they all danced on his grave and used his corpse for their preferred political issue, be it guns or immigration or whatnot. They also pretended that we couldn't possibly know the shooter's motivation from his transgender furry boyfriend or the anti-fascist slogans carved into the bullet casings. So they were gleeful about the gaslighting that they had engaged in, and they knew that it was their fault. They have fed their base a decade of borderline genocidal rage rhetoric, and they have built up in the minds of the most febrile members among them that they are on the precipice of a fascist takeover of the US. And if you truly believe that Adolf Hitler is in the White House and the heroes of the Second World War killed Hitler, well, they know what's going to happen. Now, this isn't just a problem in America. It's a problem in Britain, but it's also a problem in Australia. I happen to notice that a beloved senator in this room that I'm sure you all know, Fatima Payman, yeah, she took to a TikTok live stream, and you'll have to excuse my language here. She called Charlie Kirk a pretty awful person, and she laughed, insinuating that RIP meant rest in piss. So, Payman has a track record for this, as far as I understand. You can all correct me if I'm wrong here. She seems to have imported the ethnic grudges and incompatible culture of her home nation of Afghanistan, despite your wonderful country giving her parents refuge from the wars of that region. Well, she was suspended from the Labour Party for supporting the Green motion that would have rewarded Hamas for the October the 7th massacre with a Palestinian state. She spouted Iranian state propaganda about how wonderfully they treat women. She constantly whines about racism in Australia and clearly cares more about the Ummah than her fellow Australians. And so I would suggest that if she wants to turn Australia into Afghanistan, the simpler solution is simply to denaturalise and deport her as soon as humanly possible. Now, I'm glad I'm in good company in this room for saying something so sensible. However, I am sure that the press are already writing headlines denouncing me as extreme as we speak. And the reason I say this is because they did this before I even arrived. This is my first time in Australia. I'm only actually staying until tonight, so it turns out that I've been here for as long as it will take me to fly back, unfortunately. However, the next time I do come back, I expect a paper of great repute, the Australian Muslim Times, a contradiction in terms, who cannot stop writing about me, to keep going after me. In a piece that they titled Kirk's Murder is being an extraordinary, a cautionary tale, they titled it Charlie Kirk and the Dangers of Populism, and they said, authoritarian populism and normalised Islamophobia is taking societies in the US, the UK and Australia. They insinuated that Charlie deserved his death. They said his death is a devastating irony that should prompt sober reflection. By our side, not theirs, you know, who shot him. Tomlinson, they wrote, has openly targeted Muslim communities through media platforms. In another piece, calling CPAC a festival of fossils, which is awfully cruel to the charming Warren, I think, they predicted that my speech would, quote, probably explain to attendees why Muslims are incompatible with Western values and should be kept out and remigrated. I would like to say to the author of that piece, a Fadula Wilmot, don't worry, it's way worse than that. Between 2022 and 2023, Australia received over 739,000 immigrants. To 2024, another 667,000. So over 2 million immigrants have come to Australia since you stopped being a prison colony again during COVID. So you lock down, and then you open literally everything up, to the point of where you're now getting an extra 2 to 3% of your population every year. I mean, the UK is on a suicide run, and we're only doing 1%. So you guys are really racing ahead of us. Now, a few 100,000 were temporary students, and some people might not balk at that, though I would suggest chaining the sons and daughters of the CCP in your elite universities is probably not a good idea. The single largest provider of new migrants was India, at almost 100,000 a year. You guys have taken in 250,000 Indians since 2019. I might humbly suggest that if more Indians were the solution to Australia's problems, then India itself would not have many problems. And I would ask, why aren't they keen on keeping this GDP rocket fuel, this high-power, high-skilled labour, for themselves? So, yes, as Fatima has shown us, Islam is indeed incompatible with Australia. You don't get Islam out of Australia. But there are plenty of other cultures that are not compatible with Australia either. You cannot recreate a country by putting a different culture into it. You don't get Australia out of Islam, or India, or China. Now, that doesn't mean every immigrant's a bad person, of course, but most countries are the way they are because of the people that live in them, and so exceptions do not disprove rules. Countries are the way they are because of how groups of people behave. And I regret to inform you, no matter how lovely Brisbane Airport is, they do not leave their cultural baggage at the airport when they arrive. Most people recreate the conditions of their home if you let them in their new home. And so it's all well and good stopping the boats, but that doesn't matter if your passport gates remain a portal to the third world. I hear a lot of talk about net zero from your senators, and I'm glad that you're only 5 years behind Britain's national conversation. I might suggest that you can recover from an economic catastrophe. You can recover from an energy catastrophe. You cannot recover from a demographic revolution. Now, as Senator Price pointed out, much to the consternation of her own party, who I think could not afford to expel its own members at this point, the more people you import for the third world, the more people vote for the third world. There is a reason that Indians are voting for the Labour Party, because they know they'll let in more Indians. And whether it's Ilhan Omar or Zoran Mandani in America, or the 4 Gaza independent MPs defending cousin marriage in Britain's parliament, the outcome is always the same. As much as Australia's voice, which assumably is spoken in Pashto, got a laughable less than 1% in May's elections, if you continue to provide it demographic fodder, they will be a threat in the next few years. You will get more Fatima payments, and I do not want to see that happen to your excellent country. Allow Britain to be a cautionary tale. In the 5 years since Brexit, our politicians and civil servants rubber-stamped the visas of everyone who applied like it was going out of fashion. We took in 4 million immigrants in 4 years, including 1 million Indians, by the way. Another 200,000 illegal immigrants broke in via boat or lorry since 2018. 95% of those visas are given to non-net taxpayers. So I am literally paying to battery farm foreign nationals in my own country for the food, I suppose. Each costs the taxpayer £465,000 by the time they retire, if they work at all. Letting the Boris wave stay has a bill of £234 billion. The Labour government, the new Labour government, have promised to build 1.5 million homes in 5 years, while also letting in 1.5 million migrants at that same time. Does this sound familiar to you guys? I heard that you're just having the housing and immigration conversation. Britain is now #1 in Western Europe for crimes committed by foreign nationals. Half of all sexual assaults in London are committed by foreign nationals. Afghans and Eritreans are 20 times more likely than a British national to commit a sex offence against a woman and girl. Why are we waging wars on women and girls in this way? Diversity being our strength, I suppose. This week we learned an Egyptian illegal immigrant living in a Hilton hotel near Hyde Park committed rape despite being a convicted terrorist in Egypt. Why are we housing Egyptian terrorists in our hotels? Yet again beats me. Were every single life, remember, ruined by a foreign criminal, every single life taken by a foreign criminal is a consequence of government policy. It never needed to happen because they never needed to be in the country in the first place. That means this can be prevented by government policy too, and anyone refusing to prevent it does not deserve your vote. But the doctrine of human rights demands we prioritize the feelings of foreign rapists over parents and children in Essex. Our Home Office is entirely captured by a 700-member Islamic network who, anytime there is a terror attack in England, tells the public, don't look back in anger, for example, after the Manchester Arena bombing. Its members have taken bribes to overturn rejected asylum claims. One of them went to a seminar on how counter-terror policy is actually systemically racist. And then she watched an ISIS training video, pointed at the screen and laughed and said, I know that guy, he went to my school. That's who we're putting in charge of immigration in our country. Our new Home Secretary, though, is going to change this. Our new Home Secretary is Shabana Mahmood, who says her Sunni faith is the most important thing about her life. And back in 2018, she endorsed a definition of Islamophobia which said that conversations about the Pakistani rape gang scandal, where thousands, hundreds of thousands of girls were raped, tortured, trafficked, and some even murdered in my country, she said conversations about that were racist. Now, she is being tasked with appointing the head of the inquiry into those rape gangs. Excuse me if I'm sceptical as to whether or not she's going to be honest about that. If we keep up this trend, by 2063, Britain will be minority white British. Whole cities are already majority immigrant. An Islamic party is going to have many MPs at the next election if Jeremy Corbyn can pull that particular cadre of kooks together. Nobody voted for this. We voted against it in every election since 1974, and we got it anyway. The reason that Nigel Farage and the Reform Party are currently riding high in the polls is because people desperately want them to stop this, and I hope they do. Now, Reform UK have focused on mass deporting every illegal immigrant in the country, and I support that policy. But I would like to remind everyone here, just as Tony Abbott was praised for stopping the boats, a demographic revolution and the cultural change that inevitably follows from that is no better whether or not the people conducting it have the appropriate documents. Now, some people, maybe not in this room, may feel uneasy about what I'm saying because you guys have just reached the immigration is bad for housing stage of the discourse. Your complaints are pretty much still economic. But I would suggest some hard truths. The blank slate is fake. Not all immigrants are equal. Diversity is not your strength. Islam does not belong in Australia. And there is nothing extreme about not wanting to share your country with people who hate you. So the question is, how do you argue against this? Because I happen to have noticed there's a leadership vacuum on the Australian right now. And the next few years will prove crucial as to whether or not you can salvage your nation from whatever the hell Albanese is doing to it. And I might suggest that you've been held back by the lie that Australia is a nation of immigrants. Now, don't worry, Britain's been told that too. So apparently the Norman conquest has redefined the whole of Britain for 1,000 years. This narrative was invented in America, and again applies to Britain despite us having less immigration between the Second World War and the Norman conquest than we've had in the last 20 years. But Australia was not built by immigrants. It was built by settlers, the toughest people from England who could turn a barren outback into a beautiful country with thriving cities and clean beaches. Your culture can't be reduced to kitschy things like koalas, cricket, and Crocodile Dundee. You've got a much greater culture than that. You have a sense of humour and armour-plated livers. You're courageous people, mad enough to live around snakes, spiders, and all other manners of critters that could kill you. If I were to ever move to your country, I would only ever be a house guest. I would only ever be a paperwork Australian. Because you guys are the ones that carry your country and your culture in your hearts. It matters to you, and only you can recreate and sustain it. And that means any one of the politicians begging for your vote should recognise that people of Australian heritage are the ones they owe their loyalties to. They should not be putting on Sikh turbans or prostrating themselves before Hindu schools. That is not good enough. Australia belongs to Australians. As Tony Abbott said earlier, your Anglo-Celtic identity is, in fact, the source of your strength. Your resilience built this country. Your nation is a home, not an economic zone. And if any of the house guests disrespect your country, put their feet up on your furniture, either you have the right to evict them, Or they are squatters, and when the squatters outnumber the homeowners, it no longer becomes your home. And any MP or senator who thinks any of what I have said today is far right and worthy of denouncing are not worthy of representing you. So because I'll keep to time, I'll finish with this. Perhaps it takes a POM to say it, but I would like to remind you all that Australia is indeed a great nation. It's being misled right now, but I trust you to pick the right person to lead it, and it should never, ever be replaced. Thank you very much.
He's back by popular demand, and this time on a more serious note. Our favourite UK comedian and